The alien spaceport was alive with strange colors and louder voices than Captain Ryan Hale wanted to hear that evening. Ships of every size drifted through the giant glass dome overhead, their engines humming like faraway storms. Traders shouted in a dozen languages, robots carried boxes that hissed steam, and the crowd pushed in waves across the cold silver floor. Ryan moved through it all like a stone in a rushing river, his military boots steady, his sharp gray uniform catching small reflections of the neon lights. He only wanted to return to his quarters after the long meeting with alien diplomats, where every word had felt like walking through a minefield. The galaxy respected Earth now, but they also feared it. He had learned to carry that weight on his shoulders. It happened in a blink. A young alien girl stepped out from between two tall cargo droids, her hands full of a tray holding 4 cups of bright blue liquid that glowed faintly in the dim light. Her eyes were wide, her steps too quick, and she never saw him coming until it was too late. The tray tipped, the glowing drink flew, and the cold liquid splashed across his chest in a sharp, icy slap. The smell was like burned fruit and metal. The stain spread fast over his uniform shirt, bright as an electric wound. I am so sorry," the girl cried, her voice light and shaking. Her skin was pale with a faint lavender hue, her hair tied back in a messy band. She dropped the tray and grabbed a cloth from her belt, dabbing at his chest without asking. Ryan froze, his jaw tight, the words rising in his throat but stopping as he saw her eyes. They darted left and right, never resting on him for more than a second. She looked afraid. No, more than afraid. Hunted. "It's fine," Ryan said flatly, his soldier's voice calm, but his mind ticking. The drink had soaked in deep, leaving a faint glow where the fabric should have been clean. "This doesn't wash out easy, does it?" She shook her head quickly, her long fingers clutching the cloth. No, but I can fix it. I work nearby. Please, let me take it. I will make it new." Ryan looked down at the mess, then back at her. She was too eager, almost desperate. Most aliens would have apologized and fled, not offered special treatment. He caught the way her hand trembled as she gestured toward a side alley between 2 tall towers of cargo containers. There was a door there, half hidden in the glow of the market signs. "All right," he said after a pause that stretched too long, making her shift on her feet. "Lead the way." As they walked, the noise of the market softened behind them. The air here was cooler, the lights flickering. Ryan's instincts whispered the old lessons drilled into every soldier: nothing is ever just an accident. He adjusted the collar of his wet shirt, feeling the cold fabric cling to his skin. The glow from the stain pulsed faintly in the dark, almost like it was alive. Inside the small shop, strange machines hummed and clicked. The walls were lined with rows of alien textiles, each roll marked with symbols he couldn't read. The girl hurried behind a counter and motioned for him to remove his shirt. "It will take only a moment," she said, her voice now low, as if someone outside might hear. Ryan unbuttoned slowly, keeping his sidearm within easy reach. "You spill drinks on soldiers often?" he asked, watching her expression. Her hands froze for half a second before she forced a smile. "No. It was a mistake. Please. It was just clumsy hands." But Ryan had seen clumsy. This was not it. Her movements were too precise, her words too quick. He looked around the shop. Strange markings were scratched into the corners of the counter, like small runes burned into the wood. Outside, a shadow moved past the window, stopping just long enough to make his spine stiffen. Minutes dragged as the machine hummed, drawing the glow out of the fabric with thin beams of light. The girl glanced at the door more times than at her work. When she finally handed the shirt back, it looked clean, too clean. The glowing stain was gone, but the cloth felt different under his fingers, lighter somehow. Almost as if something had been added, not removed. "Thank you," he said, slipping it on again. "You seem nervous. Expecting someone." She swallowed and shook her head, but her eyes told another story. There was something behind them, a warning she could not speak, or maybe a guilt she could not hide. He wanted to press her, demand the truth, but a sound outside cut through the air like a blade, a soft, clicking signal that no normal shopper would notice. Only someone trained. Ryan buttoned the shirt and stepped out of the shop into the cold alley. The market noise returned faintly from the distance, but here the air felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were watching. He glanced down at his chest, now spotless, and yet his skin beneath felt warm, almost burning where the stain had been. He walked on, his hand resting near his sidearm, his mind already running through scenarios. Maybe it was just an accident. Maybe she was just scared of losing her job. Or maybe, just maybe, a simple spill was the start of something far bigger, something that had just marked him in ways he could not yet see. The market was still alive when Ryan returned the next day, but something about it felt different. The colors were the same, the noise was the same, but the air had changed. It felt heavier, like the calm before a storm. The shirt on his back was spotless now, cleaner than when it came from Earth's quartermaster. But the memory of the glowing stain and the alien girl's nervous glances refused to leave his mind. He had been a soldier long enough to know when something simple was hiding something dangerous. He spotted her again near the same stalls. She was carrying a tray again, this time empty, walking quickly with her head down. For a moment, she almost didn't see him standing there. When she finally did, her eyes widened like she had been caught doing something she shouldn't. Her steps faltered, and the tray rattled in her hands. "You again," Ryan said, his voice calm but firm. "The shirt's fine. But I have questions." She bit her lip and glanced around, the way prey does when it senses a predator nearby. The crowd moved in restless waves, aliens of different shapes and colors passing close, their voices blending into a low roar. Ryan saw her fingers tighten around the tray, as if she was ready to run. But instead of fleeing, she whispered, "Not here. They are watching." Ryan stepped closer, his boots clicking against the metal floor. "Who?" he asked. "The people who made you spill that drink." She flinched at his words, and for the first time, he saw real fear in her face. "I can explain," she said in a hurried breath. "Follow me." She led him again toward the quieter alleys behind the market, but this time Ryan's hand stayed near the grip of his sidearm. His senses sharpened with each step, every shadow a possible threat. The neon lights faded behind them, replaced by cold steel walls and narrow paths. There was a shop ahead, the same one as before, but instead of stopping there, she opened a side door he hadn't noticed yesterday. It slid open with a hiss, revealing a small room lined with machines that hummed softly, their lights dim and blue. Inside, the air smelled of metal and some chemical he couldn't name. The girl shut the door quickly and leaned against it, breathing fast. "I should not have done it," she said, her voice trembling. "They told me I had no choice." Ryan stood still, letting his eyes adjust. "Start talking," he said quietly. "Who are they? And what did you put in my shirt?" She shook her head hard. "It wasn't supposed to hurt you. It is only a marker, something that makes you easy to find. They wanted to track a human soldier, and I was forced to mark you." His jaw tightened. "Why me?" "You were there," she said simply. "High rank, clean uniform, alone in the crowd. They said it was enough." Ryan stepped closer, his shadow falling across her. "What happens next?" Her eyes filled with a strange mix of fear and regret. "They will follow you. They will know where you go, who you meet. And when the time comes, they will strike." Ryan looked down at his shirt. It felt normal, but the thought of something hidden inside its fibers made his skin crawl. "Can it be removed?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "Yes, but not easily. The marker is deep. They hide it with their own tech, it glows only in their eyes, their scanners." A faint noise outside made Ryan's head turn. A soft click, almost like a camera shutter, echoed through the narrow alley. He reached for his weapon but did not draw it yet. "Who are they?" he pressed again. "The Syndicate," she whispered. "They run the underworld in this sector. They hate humans. They think your kind is spreading too fast." Ryan exhaled slowly. This was no longer just a spilled drink. This was a thread leading to a larger web, and he had just stepped into it. He studied her face. She was young, her hands shaking, her eyes pleading. She had been used, maybe even threatened, but that didn't change the fact. Someone had just painted a target on his back. "Why tell me this now?" he asked. "Because if they kill you, they will come for my people next," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "And I am tired of being their tool." The machines in the room hummed louder for a moment, a signal or a warning. Ryan made his decision. "You're going to help me," he said. "Not because I trust you yet, but because you owe me the truth." She swallowed hard and nodded. "I will help. But they already know we are here." Ryan's eyes flicked to the door, his soldier instincts kicking in like an old, familiar weapon. Somewhere out in the alley, the shadows moved again. The stain was gone, but the danger it brought had just begun. The station slept under the dim glow of its artificial night, but Ryan Hale did not. He lay in his quarters, the hum of the air system steady, the lights low, yet his eyes refused to close. The shirt, freshly cleaned, perfectly folded on the chair across the room, seemed to watch him. It looked harmless now, almost new, yet the girl's words circled in his head like predators. They wanted to track a human soldier. "They will know where you go." He turned in bed, staring at the ceiling, every sound in the hallway outside a possible footstep, every flicker of light beneath his door a silent warning. When he finally rose, the floor felt colder than it should. He moved to the chair and lifted the shirt, feeling the fabric between his fingers. It was soft, warm even in the cold air. Under the dim blue light, there was nothing strange. But Ryan had been in enough battlefields to know danger rarely showed its teeth until it was too late. He held it closer to the wall lamp and watched the cloth shimmer faintly, as if the fibers caught the light differently, like a thin layer of dust that wasn't there before. A soldier's instinct is a quiet alarm, never loud, never clear, just a slow whisper. "This is wrong." He decided to test it. Pulling out a small scanner from his locker, a standard-issue tool for detecting contraband and chemical traces, he passed the beam over the shirt. For a second, nothing. Then, a flicker of orange light blinked on the scanner's screen. Trace element detected. Foreign compound, unknown origin. His jaw tightened. There it was. Something was in the fabric, something the naked eye couldn't catch. A faint sound outside his door made him stop. A soft, insect-like buzz, like a drone passing by. He killed the light instantly and moved to the side of the door, every muscle ready. The sound faded, then returned, this time accompanied by a faint pulse that made his wall panel glow for a heartbeat and then go dark again. It wasn't the station's system, it was something else, something searching. Ryan waited until the hallway was silent again. Then he slid the shirt into a sealed pouch and locked it inside his chest unit. His thoughts raced. If the syndicate had marked him, they would not wait long. He was alone on this level, with only a few Earth officers scattered across the sector. Any move could be watched, any ally compromised. He needed information, fast. The next morning, he returned to the market, but this time not as a wandering soldier. His uniform was hidden under a plain jacket, his face calm but his eyes searching. The alien girl was there again, standing at the edge of a crowd, her tray empty. She spotted him first, her shoulders stiffening as if she expected punishment. But Ryan only nodded slightly, motioning her toward a narrow passage. "You marked me," he said when they were out of sight. His voice was low but sharp. "That marker is active. I saw their drone last night." She looked pale, more than her natural lavender hue. "Then it has begun," she whispered. "They will watch you now. Every door you open, every face you meet." "Is there a way to shut it down?" he asked. "There is a pulse jammer," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "But it is guarded. They keep it in their lower deck vault. Only syndicate handlers can open it." Ryan studied her face. She was young, but there was resolve there now, a shadow of someone who had lived under a leash too long. "Then we get it," he said simply. She stared at him as if he had just declared war. You don't understand. They own this sector. Their watchers are everywhere. I fought worse, Ryan replied, his tone quiet but edged with steel. You said they will come for your people next. Help me stop them. She hesitated, her hands twisting in the folds of her work robe. If we move too soon, they will kill us both, she said. But if we wait, they will still come. A soft clatter echoed from the alley mouth, a sound like metal tapping against metal. Ryan's hand went to his sidearm as shadows shifted near the street. They were being watched, he was sure of it now. He motioned for her to move, and they slipped deeper into the warren of service corridors behind the market. As they walked, the girl spoke quickly, her voice barely more than a breath. The marker in your shirt, it does not just show where you are. It records. It listens. They can hear our talks if we are close to it. Ryan stopped, his mind turning cold. So even now, they might be listening? She nodded. Yes. Unless you left it behind. I sealed it, he said. But that may not be enough. They reached a maintenance hatch where the dim lights flickered in uneven rhythm. The girl pressed her palm to a hidden panel and a narrow passage opened, revealing an old transport shaft leading downward. We cannot stay on the surface, she said. Too many eyes. Ryan followed her in, his mind already mapping the possibilities. He had not planned to stay on this station long, but now leaving was no longer a simple choice. If the syndicate had targeted him, they were ready to target others. And if a war started from this, one marked shirt could turn into 100 coffins. The shaft door slid shut above them, drowning out the distant noise of the market. Down here, the air was damp and cold, the metal walls marked with forgotten symbols. Somewhere far below, machines hummed like deep-throated beasts waiting to be fed. Ryan tightened his grip on the rail as the platform began to descend. He could feel it in his bones now. This was no random mistake. He had been marked without knowing, and the game had already begun. The lift came to a stop with a sharp hiss, opening into a dim corridor that smelled of oil and cold dust. The lights were thin strips along the ceiling, flickering like distant stars, and the walls were covered in marks that spoke of forgotten hands and old repairs. Ryan stepped out first, his boots making soft echoes, his eyes scanning every dark corner. The alien girl followed close behind, clutching the edges of her robe as if they might keep her safe. Down here, far from the bright market above, the station felt like another world, quieter, older, and far more dangerous. They moved along a narrow path that curved into a storage chamber where old cargo crates stood like silent sentinels. The girl stopped near a low table, activated a small device that cast a pale white circle of light around them, and then finally spoke with a voice that had lost its trembling edge. I will tell you what they want, she said. But once you hear it, you will not be able to walk away. Ryan folded his arms, standing like a shadow in the glow. I had that choice yesterday, he said. Not anymore. Talk. She sat on one of the crates, her lavender skin catching the faint light, and began to explain. The syndicate, she said, was not a simple gang or group of thieves. They were an invisible chain that wrapped around half the trade routes in this region. They controlled information, shipments, debts, even the flow of food to small colonies. They feared humans because Earth did not bend to their rules. So they began to map the movements of human officers and soldiers, quietly, without open war, waiting for the moment to strike when no one expected it. The drink I spilled, she said, her voice heavy with shame, was laced with tracer dust. It spreads inside the fabric, bonds with it. Their scanners can see it from orbit. It does not wash out, not truly. Ryan remembered the faint shimmer under the light, the glow that refused to die even after her machine worked on it. So every step I've taken since then, he murmured. They've seen it. She nodded. And every face near you, every door you pass, they note it. The syndicate collects the pattern and builds a map. When enough soldiers are marked, they will cut the lines, one by one, until no one sees it coming. The weight of her words pressed against the cold air. Ryan's jaw tightened, his mind running like a machine of war. This was not just about him. This was a silent weapon aimed at Earth's forces. "How many have they marked?" he asked. "I do not know," she said. "I am one of many who were forced to deliver the dust. My people, they are held by contracts and threats. They take our families, our food, our air. We obey, or we vanish." Ryan studied her face. No longer just fear there, but a raw wound of guilt. She had been used, turned into a tool against a soldier she barely knew. Yet she had risked everything to tell him now. He felt the old iron inside his chest, the same weight he had carried on battlefields when choices meant lives. "You're telling me this because you want it to stop," he said. "I want to be free of them," she whispered. "And I want my people to breathe without fear." A low rumble passed through the floor, machinery moving somewhere far below. Ryan turned his head slightly, listening. "How deep is their nest?" "Deep enough," she said. "Their vault is 3 levels down. That is where the jammer is. If you can break it, the tracers stop sending their signal. It will blind them." He thought about the risk, an entire syndicate network, hidden in the bones of the station, waiting for any misstep. "If I go down there, I won't walk alone," he said. "You started this with me. You finish it." She swallowed, but did not argue. Something in her posture shifted, not surrender, but a fragile resolve. "Then we move fast," she said. "Before they shift the marker's signal to others." Ryan checked his weapon, the cold grip steady in his hand. Above them, the market would be waking soon, lights returning, the hum of the crowd washing over everything like a tide. Down here, only the hum of the walls answered. The girl stepped to the edge of the corridor and pressed her palm against a hidden panel. A thin map shimmered into view, lines, rooms, a network beneath the station that most travelers never saw. Her finger traced a path. "Here," she said, "this route avoids most watchers. But once we reach the 3rd deck, their eyes will be everywhere." Ryan looked at the path, then at her. "What's your name?" he asked suddenly. She blinked, as if she hadn't expected him to care. "Lura," she said after a pause. "Lura," he repeated, locking it in his memory. Names mattered. They reminded him who he was fighting for. He took a deep breath, the air thick with dust and old metal. The stain had been cleaned, the shirt looked perfect, but now he understood what it really was. A beacon, a silent chain meant to pull him into their trap. And maybe, just maybe, he would use that same chain to drag them out of their shadows. Far above, a distant alarm echoed faintly down the shaft. Lura froze, her eyes darting to the ceiling. "They know," she whispered. Ryan smiled without warmth, the soldier's smile that had frightened men on 100 battlefields. "Good," he said. "Let them come." The alarms faded into a distant throb as Ryan and Lura moved deeper into the underbelly of the station. The narrow corridors twisted like veins of some sleeping beast, each one dimly lit by old strips of light that flickered in and out, leaving moments of darkness that stretched too long. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Ryan walked with his weapon drawn low, his eyes scanning every doorway, every grate, every sound that didn't belong. Lura walked close to him now, her earlier fear hardening into something else, resolve, or maybe desperation. "They will search the upper levels first," she said in a low voice that barely carried beyond the hum of the walls. "But once they see you have gone below, they will close the gates. This sector has locking barriers. Once they drop, we are cut off from the docks." Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we stay ahead of them," he said. "They marked me because they think I am a target to follow. Let's make them follow me exactly where I want them to go." Lura looked at him, unsure. "You plan to bait them?" A small, cold smile touched his lips. "If they want me, they'll get me. But not on their terms." They reached a junction where the floor opened into a wide loading hall, dark except for a faint blue glow leaking through the gaps of a half-shut bulkhead door. Old crates lined the walls, some broken open to reveal pieces of forgotten machines. Ryan moved to one of the crates and pried it open further. Inside were transmitter parts, wires, and a cracked signal dish. His mind worked fast, his hands already searching. "We'll make them think I'm trapped," he said, laying the dish on the floor. "We send a signal strong enough to make their scanners bite, then we leave a door open where we want them to come." Lyra crouched beside him, her hands trembling but willing. "And then," Ryan said, pulling a small explosive charge from his belt, "we shut the door behind them." The plan was simple in shape, dangerous in detail. Lyra knew the maintenance ducts, Ryan knew how syndicate hunters moved. Together, they planted 2 charges along a narrow corridor that led straight into the hall. The charges weren't meant to kill, too much noise would bring half the station down, but they would collapse the hallway enough to trap a strike team inside for just long enough. Lyra watched him work with quick, precise movements that betrayed years of training. "You've done this before," she whispered. "Too many times," Ryan replied without looking up. "Different enemies, same games." When the trap was set, he placed his marked shirt in the middle of the hall, draped over a broken cargo sled, and activated the transmitter. Its hum rose like a quiet alarm, sending a pulse through the floor that would sing out to every syndicate scanner nearby. "Here I am." Then they moved. Lyra led him through a narrow side tunnel, her fingers tracing the old symbols on the walls as they passed, each one a secret path left behind by workers who had vanished long before the syndicate claimed the station. The tunnel bent sharply and ended in a dark observation deck above the hall. From there, they could see the shirt glowing faintly under the transmitter's light, like a small star in a deep pit. Minutes passed, each one heavier than the last. Then the shadows began to move. Figures in dark armor slipped through the far doors, their steps silent, their weapons sleek and curved like the tools of predators. Ryan counted 5, then 8, then more, syndicate hunters, their visors glowing a cold green. They spread out in a practiced arc, scanners sweeping the floor, eyes locked on the bait. "They came fast," Lyra whispered. "They were close already," Ryan said. His voice was calm now, steady as a drawn line. "Good." When the hunters reached the center of the hall, one of them lifted the shirt, holding it up to the faint light. The others formed a circle, scanning the walls. Ryan pressed the small detonator in his hand. The charges went off with a muffled roar that shook the deck beneath their feet. Dust and shards of metal rained down as the side corridor caved in behind the hunters, sealing their path of retreat. Lights flickered, alarms wailed, and in the chaos, Ryan and Lyra slipped through the opposite door, moving fast toward the vault levels. "They will call for backup," Lyra said as they ran. "Let them," Ryan answered. "The more they look at that hall, the less they see where we are going." The station's lower decks opened ahead, a maze of locked doors and heavy gates, each one a layer of the syndicate's secret heart. Somewhere down here was the jammer that could blind their scanners, break the chain, and turn this quiet war into a loud one. Ryan paused at the next corner, his breathing steady despite the run, and looked at Lyra. "You still have a way out if you want it," he said. "This isn't your war." She shook her head slowly. "It became mine the day they made me stain your shirt." For the first time, he believed her fully. She was no longer just a frightened worker caught in someone else's net. She had chosen her side. The hum of distant boots echoed down the steel halls, reinforcements, angry and closing in. Ryan adjusted his weapon and moved forward into the deeper dark, a soldier carrying not just a mark, but now a reason to strike first. The vault level was colder than the upper decks, and the air tasted faintly of copper, as if the station itself bled in secret places. Pipes ran like veins along the ceiling, dripping from old seams, and the lights were thin, pale lines that seemed to flicker slower than normal. Ryan led the way with his weapon raised, each step silent on the steel floor. Behind him, Lyra followed close, her breathing quick but steady now, her fear sharpened into a thin, controlled edge. Far above them, alarms still groaned, the syndicate scrambling to untangle the trap he had left behind. But here, below the noise, something waited. The jammer room was guarded, as they knew it would be. 2 figures in dark armor stood before a reinforced door, their helmets smooth and faceless, each carrying a curved rifle that hummed with faint power. They were still, but not idle. Their visors swept the hall like restless eyes, and the faint twitch of their fingers showed nerves beneath their discipline. Ryan crouched behind an old service crate and studied them in silence, measuring the angle, the distance, the time it would take. Lyra leaned close, her whisper almost lost in the cold hum of the walls. "There is no other way in," she said. "That door leads straight to the jammer's core. If they call for more guards, we will not get through." Ryan gave a slow nod. "Then we go now." The fight was quick, sharp, and without noise. Ryan moved like a shadow, his sidearm spitting 3 soft pulses of blue light that cut through the dim corridor. The guards fell without a cry, their rifles clattering against the steel. Lyra stared at the still bodies, her hands clenched, then forced herself to step over them. She pressed her palm to the door's hidden panel, her skin glowing faintly as her species imprint unlocked the first seal. Inside, the jammer sat like a black heart beating in the middle of a silver cage. It was a tall, narrow tower of crystal and dark metal, its surface crawling with faint symbols that shifted when Ryan tried to focus on them. Wires and conduits ran from its base into the walls, feeding the syndicate's invisible eyes across the station. Ryan approached it slowly, feeling the air change around it, the faint buzz of hidden waves, the quiet pulse of power. This was the device that had turned a simple spill into a weapon. "Can you shut it down?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Not from here. I can open it, but its core is tied to their command codes." Ryan studied the device, then the explosive charge at his belt. "Then we do this the old way." He placed the charge at the base, setting the timer to a narrow window. Lyra watched him, her hands twisting together, and for the first time in hours, a thin line of fear cracked her calm. "When it blows, the syndicate will come with everything they have," she said. "They already are," Ryan replied. "But they'll be blind when they arrive." The door behind them opened with a hiss that was too soft to be an alarm. 3 shadows stepped in, silent as knives. Syndicate hunters, faster this time, closer, their rifles already lifting. Ryan spun, his shot burning the air as Lyra dropped behind the jammer's frame. The first hunter fell, the second fired, the pulse tearing a line through the wall beside Ryan's head. The third lunged forward with a blade of white heat, and Ryan met him with a hard strike that drove him into the metal floor. The fight was tight, brutal, and ended with the room thick with the smell of scorched steel. Ryan wiped the edge of his weapon, his breath steadying. The charge's timer blinked red now, counting down. "We go," he said, pulling Lyra to her feet. They ran through the twisting lower corridors as the pulse of the jammer grew louder behind them, a rising hum that followed like a warning heartbeat. Doors hissed open, alarms chased them like hunting hounds, and somewhere above, the syndicate finally understood where the real fight was. They poured troops downward, but too late. The explosion came like a deep breath released. No fire, no roar, just a heavy shock that rolled through the station's bones. Lights flickered, then steadied, but the hum of hidden scanners died at once. The syndicate's network was blind. Ryan and Lyra reached the maintenance shaft just as the gates began to fall across the upper decks. Behind them, syndicate voices barked orders, boots slammed against the floor, and distant weapons cracked. But the path they had chosen was narrow and old, too small for squads to follow quickly. Step by step, they climbed toward the dock levels, the glow of emergency lights painting their hands in thin stripes of red. When they finally emerged into the market's night-lit streets, the crowd was in chaos. Syndicate hunters moved like shadows through the stalls, searching for a ghost they had already lost. Ryan kept his hood low, Lyra close, and they slipped into the human sector where Earth's small detachment had begun to stir. He sent a single coded message through his wrist unit, a signal that would reach the nearest fleet patrol. Hostile tracking network exposed, send extraction. By the time the first Earth Marines stepped onto the station hours later, the syndicate's grip had already begun to break. Hunters pulled back to their hidden routes, their scanners dark, their plans leaking through frightened informants. Lyra stood beside Ryan in the dawn glow of the docking bay, watching ships lift through the high glass dome. "You could leave now," she said quietly. "Forget this place." Ryan looked down at the shirt she had once stained. It was patched again, torn at the side from the fight, but still his. "I don't forget," he said. "And I don't leave a war half-finished." She met his eyes, a tired but honest look. "Then I will help you. My people know their routes. We can tell you where they hide next." He nodded once, the decision already made. A single accident had become a chain that stretched far beyond this station. It had started with a glowing drink and a nervous girl, but it had uncovered a shadow war waiting to burn. Now the shadow had a face, and the face had seen him. As the Earth warship rose beyond the dome, its engines cutting through the stars, Ryan tightened his grip on the rail and let the cold wind of space sweep across his skin. The stain was gone, but what it revealed had only just begun.